Anugrahnata
Anugrahnata
by the merciful Lord.
by the merciful Lord.
Translation by His Holiness Srila Prabhupada. O sober Vidura, King Indra, his honor having been insulted, poured water incessantly on Vrindavan, and thus the inhabitants of Raja, the land of cows, were greatly distressed. But the compassionate Lord Krishna saved them from danger with his pastime umbrella, the Govardhan hill. So I'm just going to just chant the Sanskrit for the next one. Chrakchashi karir mishtam manayan rajani mukham gayan gala param rime srinam mandala mandana. In the third season of the year, the Lord enjoyed the essential beauty of the assembly of women by attracting them with his pleasing songs in an autumn night, brightened by moonshine. Purport. Before leaving the land of cows, Vrindavan, the Lord pleased his young girlfriends and transit his Ras Leela pastimes. Here, Uddhava stopped his description of the Lord's activities. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Remembrance of Lord Krishna. Om Ajnanatimiranda Shaganandana Salakaya Chakshul Om Litam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam Vande Ham Shri Guru Shuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Saharaganavitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadudam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Sakam Vitam Sha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Madojaka Badeko Vishikopika Kanta Radha Namosi De Taptakancha Go Rangi Radha Vinavishri Vishabanu Sudha Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vantakalpa Tuba Chakripa Sindhu Bhaya Patitana Bhavimbayo Vaishnavi Bhayo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namane Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshitarane Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so this is the conclusion of chapter 2 of Canto 3. And the title of this chapter is Remembrance of Lord Krishna. Everybody might not remember, but so many pastimes have been described by Uddhava to Vidura about Krishna's pastimes out of Vrindavan. And this remembrance is very important, actually. Ultimately, at the time of death, whatever you remember, that's state you achieve without fail. So this chapter we shouldn't just mechanically go through the Bhagavatam. Every chapter is important. This chapter especially remembers our Lord Krishna. Just by remembering one verse, you can go back to Godhead. And we can't have good remembrance without good Shravan and Kirtan. So first, we hear properly. When we hear properly, we can chant properly. When we chant properly, then we remember properly. So, and Shravanam comes from Bhagavatam class and reading. So, this title is, like I said, is very important. But so there's two verses that I read. I'm not going to speak on Ras Leela, unfortunately. I'm not qualified to speak on that. Even Uddhava says here, he says that he stopped his description of the Lord's pastimes when he started talking about, the Gopi Leela out of Vrindavan. So I will mainly speak on this verse, text 33, pertaining to King Indra. And I think Rishi Kumar Prabhu, he gave a nice description of this pastime, the Govardhan Hill pastime. So I'm not going to mainly talk about the pastime. I'm mainly going to talk about specific aspects of how we can take that and apply it in our life. This is Vigyan. So it says here that, in the translation, King Indra having his honor having been insulted. So Indra was ultimately afflicted by pride. this whole pastime started ultimately because Indra had this pride, and Krishna wanted to curb this pride of Indra. So it's very important, actually, this pride. We should understand it because there's actually a difference between material pride and spiritual pride. There is a difference. Actually, there's a name in the Vishnu Sahasranam named Darpada. Krishna, he's the giver of pride. Krishna actually gives pride to the devotees, while simultaneously he gives pride to the demons for their own destruction. So this pride, it's like example is like a knife, you know. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam, you can offer anything to Krishna, any fruit, water, leaf. So you can use a knife to, cut up nice boga and offer to Krishna, and that's a devotional service. You're using this knife to further devotional service. Simultaneously, you can use a knife to stab a devotee. So the knife in itself isn't wrong. It's how you apply it. Same thing with this pride. Pride in itself, is how we use it. So in this name, Darpada, Guru Maharaj explains that spiritual pride can actually be a source of purification for the devotees, but we should understand what spiritual pride is and how not to let it deteriorate to material pride. And that's pretty much what this class is going to be about. But before we talk about spiritual pride, we should understand what material pride is, because this is ultimately how this Govardhan pastime was enacted due to Indra's pride. So this material pride, you can pull up Bhagavad Gita text 16:4. Krishna actually describes what he describes pride. You go to the translation. He says, pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. These qualities belong to those of demonic nature, O son of Pritha. So it's interesting because pride, arrogance, and conceit, these are all synonyms. These are all synonyms. And anger, harshness, and ignorance, this is like a result of pride, essentially. So this material pride is very dangerous. In the purport, Prabhupada says, what does it say? The road to hell is described. Just by talking about the qualities of the demons, he says the royal road is described just by having this pride. So Indra's pride ultimately caused him to be bewildered. He forgot who he was. He forgot his position as an administrator, as a servant of Krishna. And it's funny, those who know the you've read Krishna book, after Indra, enacted this Govardhan pastime, he offered like nice prayers to Krishna. If you read it, it's actually some of the most beautiful prayers you read. Indra, he's a devotee. He just gets bewildered by his own pride. And it's really beautiful prayers. And then shortly after he gave these prayers, Krishna went to the heavenly planet to get this parijata tree for Satyabhama. And Indra got afflicted by pride again. After offering nice prayers to Krishna, for being puffed up, he did the same thing again when Krishna tried to take the parijata tree. So Indra is obviously, he's in a difficult situation because he's always getting afflicted by this pride. And Krishna continuously humbles him, and that's just the nature of the demigods. They get puffed up and they get humbled. So what is the source of this pride? Where is this pride coming from? Ultimately, this pride is coming from illusion. You forget who you are. You forget that you're not this body. You forget you're part and parcel of Krishna. And because of that, you engage in sinful activities. Just like Indra, he tried to kill, the pure devotees in Vrindavan. So we have to understand, like I said, Indra, he's a devotee, but he sometimes has these demonic tendencies such as pride, arrogance, conceit, anger. And Krishna specifically, takes upon himself to rectify Indra. So also, like I said, this pride is very subtle, actually, this false ego. If you look at the Bhagavatam in the first canto, it talks about like the creation. I'm not gonna get too much into Vedic creationism, but it talks about how you have the Mahatattva, and the very first manifestation of the Mahatattva is the false ego. The very first, it's the most subtle. Actually, also when the universe is winding up, you have all the elements, so that it starts from being gross and then they get more subtle and subtle and subtle. So I think it's like earth, and then goes to like water, yeah, so on and so on, yeah. And then eventually false ego is the last thing that remains. It's the most subtle and it's the most difficult to overcome. The most difficult. the most difficult to overcome is his misidentification with the body. So, like I said, if you don't know who you are, then everything you do is wrong. And if you don't know who you are, then you're going to be subjected to this false ego, because it's just so subtle that it causes you to misidentify yourself with the body. And the thing is, there are those, even after hearing, that were part and parcel of Krishna, they still decide to, adhere to the body, the conception of life, thereby engaging in demonic activities. So Krishna is so merciful that if you want to be a demon, he will give you all the tools necessary to be a demon. Very merciful. What's this? I said this last. Sarva Kamada. He fulfills the desires of the devotees. If you want to be a demon, he'll give you all the tools necessary. In this instance, Indra, he's not a demon, but he portrayed this demonic trait of pride, and he's Indra. What he did, he summoned the Samvartaka clouds. And I remember reading that these clouds are at the end of the universal devastation. These are the clouds that are meant to bring about destruction to the universe. And Indra summoned these clouds to try to kill the pure devotees of Krishna. Krishna could have stopped him. That's really crazy. He could have stopped Indra actually from summoning these clouds, but no. He said, "Okay, you want to portray this demonic tendency of yours? I'll give you full facility to do so." And he crushed his pride. So Krishna that's how he curbs the demons. He gives them full facilities to enjoy, and then he smashes them. And I'll talk about that later. He doesn't necessarily always, for the devotees, he personally curbs the pride of the devotees. But to the demons, he just does it through his material energy. He doesn't have to. His material energy is powerful enough. The demons destroy themselves just by being involved in Krishna's external energy. So, like I said, Krishna, he's a constant companion of all the jivas. So, like I said, if you want to be a demon, he'll give you full facilities to do so. On the way back from Harinam on Friday, Kalki Prabhu read this nectar. I thought it was nectar. I don't know. Other people might not, but it was in the 5th chapter, I think, text 14 or something. And Prabhupada was saying that the super soul is a constant companion of the jiva. And he sits with him in his heart, and he knows his desires. Just how you can understand the fragrance of a flower. So you know what a flower is there by its fragrance. Similarly, a desire. Krishna knows the desires of the jiva. Krishna is interacting with the jiva, and he understands them through his desires. It's really interesting. Think about it. Like, Krishna's in your heart, and your desires are emanating, and he knows everything you're thinking about. He knows everything you desire. So, like I said, we should be careful. I said that in my last class. You should be careful of these desires, but mainly, we have the desire to get rid of this false identification with the body. Because, like I said, it's very difficult to get rid of it. It's very subtle. This false ego is very, very subtle. Even as devotees, just having pride of whatever your position, whatever brahmana, whatever brahmachari. This is also a sense of pride. This is a sense of false ego. We're in the situation of Varnashram Dharma, but ultimately we're part and parcel of Krishna. So we shouldn't identify with our situation. We should identify as servants of Krishna. If we don't, we'll always be subjected to this pride. And this pride, like I said, is a demonic tendency. We have to be always cautious of curbing it. Nonetheless, if we don't curb it, Krishna will do it. As it says in this translation, Krishna says, the Prabhupada says, but the compassionate Lord Krishna saved them from danger with his pastime and brother, the Govardhan Hill. The compassionate Krishna, he's compassionate upon, having of Vrindavan by saving them. He's also compassionate upon Indra by curbing his pride. He's compassionate upon devotees who get puffed up by curbing their pride and humbling them. He crushes the material pride of a devotee. Krishna will always, anytime you get puffed up, Krishna takes it upon himself to curb you. And it's funny because Krishna curbed the pride with Indra without necessarily fighting against him, retaliating. He just lifted up a hill. That's it. All he had to do was lift up a hill to curb Indra's pride. So yeah, Krishna is very mystical, is very mysterious. He can curb your pride in many different ways. And as I was saying before, so like I said, for the devotees, he personally takes it to curb their pride. For the demons, it's just the external energy. The nature of the material world is made that You're meant to suffer. You're meant to enjoy and suffer. This cycle of enjoyment and suffering. You know, what's this? So you have this enjoyment in the beginning. Krishna gives you this enjoyment through his external energy, but then he tells you you're gonna suffer after. He says in the Bhagavad Gita, you know, I will give you this nectar in the beginning, but then you're gonna suffer the poison in the end. And through that poison in the end, that's how he curbs your pride. Understanding that you cannot enjoy unlimitedly in this material world. You know, and we shouldn't be like, oh, you know, Indra, he's so bad, you know, he had all this pride. Because think about us. It says that we all came to the material world through Lord Brahma. So we was all at the highest post in the material world, and we all got puffed up. And Krishna humbled us. We've been through so many species of life, and yet we're still puffed up. So many species of life we've been through, and we're still proud of the material concept of life after suffering countless of lifetimes. This is ignorance. This is the nature, like I said, false ego is very subtle, but it's the hardest thing to give up. You know, it's the hardest thing to give up. But so for the devotees, can you pull up Krishna book, chapter 30? So this pastime of I think Krishna hiding from the gopis. Go down a little bit. Oh, stop. Go up. Okay, go down a little bit more. Just slow. Go down. Is this chapter 30, bro? Okay, keep going. Go up. Sorry. Okay, 1 second, man. He has disappeared because of our pride. I think it's after embracing. Okay, yeah, you passed it. Go up some more. Yeah. Okay, I mean, I could just read it, though. I have it on my screen. I'll just read it. Okay, don't worry. So anyways, this is after Krishna enjoyed the Ras Leela pastimes. I mean, this is actually in the verse that I was supposed to read, but I'm not talking too much about the Ras Leela, but I'm talking about the after effects. This is it? Yeah, exactly. So the Krishna disappeared, and the gopis said, he has disappeared because of our pride. The gopis were aware of the reason for Krishna's sudden disappearance. They could understand that when they had been enjoying Krishna, they thought themselves to be most fortunate women within the universe. And since they were feeling proud, Krishna had disappeared immediately just to curb their pride. Krishna does not like his devotees to be proud of their service to him. He accepts everyone's service, but he's not like one devotee to proudly consider himself better than others. If sometimes there are such feelings, Krishna ends them by changing his attitude towards the devotee. So the gopis are ultimately, they're pure devotees. This pastime is meant for us. They didn't have a trace of material pride, but this Leela is enacted for us to understand that we should not be puffed up. Even as a devotee, we should never be proud of our position in whatever position we have. We should always recognize that we're always subservient to Krishna. And if we don't, he'll curb our pride. But simultaneously, like I said, Krishna is Dharpada. He's actually the giver of spiritual pride. And so it's a fine line. I'm going to elaborate on this more. But when we have material pride, Krishna curbs it. Nonetheless, when we're humble, he gives us spiritual pride. So the spiritual pride, like I said, this lecture is Vishnu Sahasranam Dharpada, the giver of spiritual pride. And in that lecture, Guru Maharaj, he talks about this example of Hanuman. So when Hanuman went to Lanka and he was searching for Sita, he found her, and then Ravana found him, and then the Rakshasas, they all pretty much bound him up. And he actually let them bound him up because he wanted to see the city. He wanted to get more understand the city. And what they did was they wrapped his tail in like some cloth, and they burnt his tail. And then they wanted to parade him around the city to humiliate him. And Hanuman said, at first he let it happen, but then Hanuman remembered, like, wait, I'm a devotee of Lord Ram. He says, It is not befitting a great warrior and servant of Lord Ram to be bound up and made a laughingstock by these Rakshasas. I've had enough of this humiliation. He pretty much said it's not befitting a great warrior. He considered himself a great warrior and a servant of Lord Ram. This is spiritual pride. This is a perfect portrayal of spiritual pride. Okay, so a devotee is a lamb at home and a lion on the chase. Okay, in this instance, Hanuman, he was a lion on the chase, and his tail was getting burnt. He was getting burnt, although you can't burn the tail, Hanuman. He portrayed the spiritual pride. I'm a great devotee of Lord Ram. I've been empowered by Lord Ram. Who are these demons to humiliate me? And what he did was he like constricted himself to get out of the grips, and then he expanded himself and he burnt the whole city. And he was feeling proud, like, yeah, I'm a devotee of Lord Ram. Lord Ram's, he's giving me this empowerment. He's giving me my powers. This is spiritual pride, and this is nothing. This was actually purifying. This is what devotees should actually aspire for, to always understand that you are a servant of Krishna. You are always Hanuman. He didn't have a trace of material pride in him. For us, though, we should always be cautious, because spiritual pride is, especially for as conditioned souls, it's always susceptible to deteriorating. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, but instead of being proud of being some materialist, being proud of your education, a lot of us in here have pretty good upbringings. A lot of us are educated. Instead of being proud of whatever we had before Krishna consciousness, we should be proud of the fact that we're servants of Krishna, and we have a bona fide guru to guide us back to Godhead. This is, like I said, this example of the knife. If you use a knife correctly, you can use it as devotional service, or as an instrument to devotional service, to offer boga to Krishna and make it prasadam, just like he's doing now. And I'm sure there was a knife used in the process of him cutting up fruits or whatever. Same thing with this pride. The pride in itself is not wrong. But we're using it wrong. We use it because ultimately spiritual pride just means you're confident in the protection of Krishna. You're confident that Krishna will always protect you. This is the essence of the spiritual pride, and Hanuman portrayed this. So like I said, the basis of the spiritual pride is understanding who we are. Constantly, the Krishna process of Krishna consciousness is 24 hours a day be conscious of Krishna and our relationship with Krishna. So Prabhupada says that having pride that you're serving a Krishna, this is glorious. He says this is glorious. Having the spiritual pride that you are serving a Krishna is glorious, while simultaneously being proud that you're some materialist is a cause of your destruction. So we should be careful how to employ this pride. And actually, in the six, I guess you say angas of surrender, Bhadivinoda Thakur, it says that you accept things favorable, reject things unfavorable, feel exclusively dependent on the mercy of Krishna, always feel yourself humble, and believe firmly in Lord Krishna's protection. Like I said before, when you have spiritual pride, the essence of spiritual pride is realizing that Krishna is always going to protect you. So part of surrender actually is cultivating pure, unadulterated spiritual pride of realizing that Krishna is going to protect you. Being firmly fixed and understanding in the Lord's protection of you. And it's interesting because, even Srila Prabhupada, from a material conception, you would think he's kind of puffed up. If you didn't know, you would think he's puffed up. He wrote all his books and he's reading his books, enjoying like, wow, you would think, wow, why is he so puffed up? But he's some Swami. But no, this is Prabhupada. He has so many examples of Prabhupada actually manifesting the spiritual pride. That's one example of him reading his books. But he said he knew it wasn't him writing it. Krishna wrote it through him. He understood who he was. He understood that he's a servant of Krishna. He didn't write the books. Krishna wrote them. Also, those who read the Leela Amrita, this is pastime of Prabhupada. I think it was in Bombay, at a Pondo festival. And I forget exactly what the argument was, but I think somebody said something, some Mayavad argument, and Prabhupada was screaming. He was yelling at him. And then people in the crowd were disturbed. They were like, this is a Swami. He's supposed to be saintly. Why is he screaming at this guy? Why is he angry? And then Prabhupada's disciples realized that, no, you can employ this transcendental anger, this transcendental pride in the service of Krishna. Like I said, Prabhupada, he portrayed this transcendental pride many times. That's another example. So, oh yeah, it's also, I remember we was in Mayapur, and this is devotee named Rameshwara Prabhu. He was a member of the GBC, and he was saying how he was in charge of like publishing books, and he was saying how he he changed the pictures in some of Prabhupada's books, and he brought the pictures to Prabhupada. Every picture he changed, Prabhupada saw it, and he just chastised him every single time, like just going in on him. Prabhupada was going in on him. And you would think, why is Prabhupada having so much pride? Why can't we change the pictures? Because Prabhupada knew what Krishna wanted. Prabhupada knows what Krishna wants, because Krishna has manifested itself in Prabhupada's heart. So, like I said, externally might seem like Prabhupada had this pride, but no, he was constantly cognizant of his relationship with Krishna. So, like I said, for those who are cultivating, so Prabhupada, his pride never deteriorate to material pride. But us, it's always acceptable. For conditioned souls, our spiritual pride is always acceptable to deteriorating to material pride. Because once we forget who we are, false ego kicks in immediately. Once you forget we're serving Krishna, your false ego kicks in, you're susceptible to material pride, and you're exhibiting this a demonic tendency. So it's very important. It's very important that we remain humble. We remain cognizant of who we are. And like I said, Krishna, he'll give you this spiritual pride, but the first step is being humble. Actually, Krishna is not going to artificially puff up a devotee. Once he sees the devotee is humble, he'll reveal to him how to employ the spiritual pride. Just like I said, Hanuman. Actually, it's funny because I was reading the Ramayana, and after Hanuman was feeling proud, I'm a great devotee of Lord Ram. I burnt the city of Lanka. He remembered, like, oh, what if Sita got hurt? What if Sita got burnt? Then this is the consort of my master. What have I done? So simultaneously, he was exhibiting this spiritual pride while simultaneously exhibiting humility. And this is, like I said, the essence of the spiritual pride is humility. We should always remain fixed in who we are. And actually, this humility is many definitions of humility, actually. Like I said, you got to first cultivate this spiritual pride, you have to cultivate humility. And Prabhupada defines humility in the Bhagavad Gita as not seeking adoration from others. Those who are not seeking adoration from others, this is considered humility. So us as devotees, or aspiring devotees, when we go out and do books, and we do a Sapta Rishi or whatever, and we post a picture and we post it in the chat, and we're like, man, why is nobody liking my picture? Well, sir, this is material pride, because you literally just forgot why you're not out there doing books to see how many people like your picture. This is not the reason why we're doing books. We're doing books to serve Krishna. So you can, like I said, this spiritual pride is always acceptable to deteriorating material pride. So we can go out and we can feel like, yeah, I'm having this spiritual pride. I'm a servant of my guru. I'm a servant of Krishna. I'm doing books, yeah, And then we post a picture, nobody likes it. Automatically, that spiritual pride goes to ashes. Deteriorate the material because you forgot who you are. So we should always be careful about remaining, like I said, fixed and humble, because this humility will sustain the spiritual pride. We have to remain humble. And you actually remain humble. I remember reading this in the 6th canto that Ajamil, after the Vishnu Dutas delivered him, Prabhupada says, he was lamenting his past misdeeds. Because one thing, having knowledge of humility, but practical application, this is Vigyan. Ajamil lamented his past misdeeds. This is humility. He was saying, wow, Vishnu just saved me, but how sinful was I? I was so sinful. I forgot my Lord and Master. I was so sinful for engaging in so many, egregious activities. So this humility we can cultivate it by remembering, even though we might have some type of, we let go of our bad habits. Nonetheless, we should never forget where we came from. Our Guru saved us from the abyss of ignorance. We should never forget that. We should never forget where we were before Krishna consciousness. And we shouldn't constantly lament day and night. Oh, I'm such a rascal. I'm a bogus guy. It's not like that. It's when you get to a level of spiritual maturity, you do it in the sense of, wow, Krishna, I've forgotten you for so many years. You know, I've forgotten you. I've engaged so many negative activities. I want to serve you. I'm not qualified to serve you because my passion is these. That's a proper attitude, not just lamenting just to lament. So, like I said, this pride is always susceptible to deteriorating. Um, and ultimately, this false ego, it's very subtle. So actually, there's the four regs. Four regs. You know, we vow not to eat meat. We vow not to intoxicate, gamble, or have illicit sex. These are more or less like gross material activities. You know, these are more or less gross material activities. So in one sense, it's easy to actually give up gross sense gratification when you're fixed in devotional service. You know, when you're around devotees every day, it's like eating meat. You have prasadam. Why would I eat meat? Illicit sex. Okay, you're in the brahmacharya ashram. You're cultivating celibacy. Whatever. What's that? Intoxication. Well, we get intoxicated with the holy name. Why do we need? Why should we pay for intoxication when we get intoxicated naturally? And gambling. What's the point of that? That's just a waste of damn time. So, so yeah. So giving up the gross sense gratification, that in itself, that's relatively easy. The hard part is the subtle. That's why we chant. That's why we vow to chant 60 rounds. So the four regs, that's meant to stop us from gross material gratification, and then the chanting 60 rounds helps us with this subtle sense gratification, this of this false identification with the body. So the process in itself, the process works. Chanting 60 rounds, waking up. This is how you rectify this false ego. So this is the process of, but it is hard though. It is hard to not identify with your body. It's very hard because, like I said, it's the most subtle element. But nonetheless, we have to practice it. We have to practice it. We have to cultivate it. I'm running out of time already. But to be, okay, going back, like I said, we have to be humble to cultivate this spiritual pride. And this humility is actually a divine characteristic. Devotees, and the nature of devotees is to be humble. Demons are not humble. Devotees are humble. So, but in order speaking for myself, coming from a degraded background, a Western background, you know, we have these demonic tendencies, and we have to work. We have to actually work and struggle just to cultivate a divine characteristic. We have to work for it. Prabhupada didn't have to work for it. We do. Okay. And actually, in the purport of the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it says that study of the Vedas is meant for the formation of character. Formation. So even if you look outside in that sign outside, you know what it says? What's that sign? What else? What's the first thing? No. It's you're right. It's spirit. It says. Yeah, exactly. So, spiritual training retreat center. This place is meant for the formation of character. It literally says, I really like, I don't know who put that, I don't know if Suresh or Vishnu. Yeah. Spiritual training. Yeah, spiritual training. We came in Krishna consciousness on the platform of being animals, actually. We weren't even human beings. So this place is meant to actually train us to be humans, and then from being humans to actually cultivate these divine qualities such as humility. So just being here in itself, you can cultivate humility, but you should always understand that you're serving a Krishna. No matter how much Krishna endows you with some transcendental qualities, spiritual qualities, you always have to understand that you are serving a Krishna. Always. And we shouldn't, you know, even when we're practicing this humility, it shouldn't be artificial. It shouldn't be some what Bhakti-siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he says, what's his Dandavat Bhaktas. We shouldn't be Dandavat Bhaktas just offering Dandavats and that's it, but we're cultivating so many ill thoughts against somebody else. It's easy to make a show of being humble, actually. It's really easy to make a show of being humble. But that's not humility. Humility is, like I said, not seeking adoration from others. And Bhakti-siddhanta Saraswati Thakur also says that humility means complete acceptance of the absolute truth and complete rejection of the relative truth. It's a very interesting definition of humility that Mahosa Prabhu kindly blessed me with. But yeah, complete acceptance of the absolute truth. We have that complete acceptance of the absolute truth and not be swayed by the relative truths of this world. What are the relative truths of this world? You know, who's gonna be president? I was born in this country, this nation. These are all relative truths. These are relative. There's no question of being humble if you're still subscribing to these relative truths, according to Bodhisattva Saraswati Court. And I remember I was talking to this one devotee. He's a famous kirtan singer. I'm not gonna let you know who he is, but anyways, he took me to New Vrindavan, and he was it's pretty crazy. Anyway, he made an album. He made like this kirtan album, or whatever. And I was, at that time, was struggling with like intoxication, like marijuana. I was telling him, yeah, it was really hard to give it up. He's like, yeah, I know it is really hard. He was like, yeah, after I made my album, somebody offered me like some marijuana, and I smoked it, and I listened to my album, it just didn't feel the same. And I was like, wait, what? Wait, you just made a whole album chanting Hare Krishna and you smoke weed afterwards? So this is in the album. He's he has the bob. He's portraying all this humility. Even you see him in kirtan, he's so humble. This is a false show of humility, because he's trying to these relative truths of the world. He's smoking marijuana after making an album glorifying Krishna, and he's a famous kirtan singer in the movement. This is crazy. Yeah, we shouldn't have this artificial sense of humility. It's bogus. It doesn't do you good, nor does it do any other people who look up to you. No, I'm not gonna say his name. So, like I said, we should constantly be humble. I'm running out of time already. We should constantly be humble, and we should struggle. Christian consciousness is actually meant for struggle. It is. In one sense, you could say we struggle more than materialists. In one sense, because materialists, they struggle and they don't really realize. Like they're pretty much on the platform of animals. They don't actually realize they're suffering. Actually, they experience it. But they're like, oh well, this is part of life. I guess you gotta suffer sometimes. But they don't realize the gravity of the situation. We realize the gravity of the situation. We still get swayed by material temptations. On top of that, when we get puffed up, Krishna crushes our pride. So Krishna personally crushes our pride. So it's a struggle in this material world, especially being a devotee, a practitioner of Christian consciousness. We constantly have to struggle to develop these divine qualities such as humility. Because from the platform of humility, we can understand what real spiritual pride is. And when we can understand what real spiritual pride is, we can understand how to surrender fully to Krishna. We can understand the process of surrender to Krishna. But it all starts with humility. It all starts with humility. That's the essence of this class. Of course, I was talking about spiritual pride, but I don't want people going, okay, I have spiritual pride, yeah. But then if you're not humble, the spiritual pride is going to deteriorate. It's going to deteriorate, 100%. So we have to remain humble. And once we become steady in our humility, when we start, Krishna, when we start being steady in our humility, Krishna, he gives us this sense of security, like, okay, I can always depend on Krishna. Actually, a symptom of advancement of a devotee in Christian consciousness is he becomes more and more dependent on Krishna. That's how you know you are advancing in Krishna consciousness, when you see yourself more and more dependent on the absolute truth, and you reject the relative truths of this world. This is a test of advanced devotee. So, this is the last chapter of chapter 2. Yeah, this is the last verse in chapter 2 of Canto 3. And I remember when I first came into Christian life, we started off in Canto 1 in Ponce, and it's crazy how many nectar pastimes we've been through. And it's like, I was just thinking about, like, wow, we're on Canto 3 right now. This is crazy. Those who has been since Ponce, it's like, wow, like, so time's flying. Time is flying. We shouldn't waste a second. Time is very precious. We cannot get any time back gone. But for a devotee who's engaged 24 hours in Krishna consciousness, cultivating humility, trying to cultivate, a sense of understanding of who he is, then the time doesn't affect this devotee. This devotee has surpassed the influence of time. So, we should remember these pastimes, though. Like I said, I'm not just reading these. We're not reading these pastimes just mechanically. Like, the title is Remembrance of Lord Krishna. So we should constantly remember Lord Krishna, and we do it first by having proper hearing, shravana, and then proper chanting, kirtan. So I'm running late. I'll end my class now, and I'll open up for any corrections, comments, chastisements, anything else. Mostly. Please, bro. Please, bro.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
So in terms of like the spiritual pride, I'm just wondering if you can clarify. So I grew up Christian. I had a lot of debates with Christians when I started reading Prabhupada's books. Like reading the Absolute Truth, hearing about Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I would go back and forth with a lot of Christians, and I think after some time, I guess I felt like I developed a certain kind of pride. Like I know better now. You know what I mean? Like I knew better than these guys, and I think as a defense mechanism against the debates, I felt like I developed a certain kind of like attitude of like I know better than them. Is this what is this? Is this material pride? Is it spiritual pride? Or how do you
100%
respect that?
material pride.
Yeah.
100%. Why? Because the devotee, he understands that any knowledge two ways to answer this question. One, the devotee always realizes that his knowledge is coming from Krishna. You don't know anything. Krishna is giving you the knowledge to defeat these people. That's one. And two, it's material pride is because actually it's an offense. Actually, one of the on the 10 offenses it says you shouldn't preach to the faithless. So you're preaching to these people who are not adhering to what you're saying. It's actually an offense to the holy name. Actually, so it is a symptom of material pride. It's best to just, we're not here to try to argue with people. We're here to cultivate and spread Krishna consciousness. And like I said, the reason why it's material pride because as servants of Krishna, understanding you're part and parcel of Krishna, you understand that while you're arguing with one person, because you know how to defeat the arguments, it's thousands of other people who are suffering who want the knowledge. So you forgot who you were. You're forgetting that you're not out doing books or whatever, interacting in this world just to argue with people. You're here to spread Krishna consciousness. Nonetheless, there are situations where Prabhupada got in some debates with these big men in society just for the purpose of making a point. But some small demon, it's like, you're not gaining anything from arguing with some small demon. It's like, what's the point? But yeah, it's definitely material pride. So you should be careful of that. Okay. Yeah. Majis.
So I was just reading. It's on, right? I was just reading last night about the Avanti Brahmana, and it seems like kind of like a juxtaposition in regards to seeing like Hanuman's like transcendental pride, and then this Avanti Brahmana where he's completely he embodies a level of humility in terms of a level of tolerance and humility, right? But it seems like understanding the two because they're both on these exalted platforms is that Hanuman wasn't having pride for his own benefit, he was having pride because he was acting on the behalf of Lord Ram, whereas the Avanti Brahmana, he, and as we see with other exalted souls, is that they don't exhibit that pride or whatever when it comes to themselves, but when it's on behalf of the Lord, they're willing to enact that. So is that the proper understanding how we can understand?
Yeah, exactly. So the basis of spiritual pride is like I was saying, just having being confident in the Lord protecting you, and understanding that whatever divine qualities or spiritual qualities you've gotten is been given to you by Krishna, and always recognizing that. So yeah, exactly. So always realizing that you're a servant of Krishna, and any quality you have is due to Krishna. This is spiritual pride. But like I said, for Hanuman, his spiritual pride is never going to deteriorate the material pride because he's a pure devotee. But for us, it's always acceptable. So that's why I was making the point of being humble first. The first step is being humble, and then we can understand what real spiritual pride is.
And then you briefly touched on it, but that point about that I've heard many times, especially here, that we all started off as Lord Brahma.
Yeah.
But I had heard amongst these other devotees, I wasn't listening too deeply, but I had heard them say that that's not always the case. Do you know anything about this?
From my understanding, we all come from Lord Brahma. I remember reading that. I forget what canto. I mean, that's just my understanding from the Bhagavatam. I'm not sure that do you know more about this, Moses? I don't, yeah. You don't know? No, he's saying that, we all come in the Bhagavatam. It says that we all come through the material world by first for Lord Brahma, and then we all kind of just keep going back. Well, if you're pure devotee, then we go back to Godhead. But if we don't, we just keep going in different species. But I think she's saying, is there other ways we come to the material world? Yeah, like besides that, everybody comes as Lord Brahma. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Okay.
I was appreciating this point that you made about like spiritual pride is like taking appreciation for how Krishna like manifests his ability through the devotee. And I was just thinking when the like opposite platform of, you know, like maybe when we perform a service and it may not necessarily be to the way that we think it should be. And then like there's that like expression of material pride that comes in, like, I don't know, like judging our like capabilities, but not recognizing that like that result is like a manifestation of Krishna. So rather than seeing it as like lower than like our expectations, we should see it as like it's Krishna using us as an instrument.
So, was that a comment or a question?
Just a comment.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, everything's coming from Krishna, so that's true. Always understand who you are, and understand where you're going. So, anything else? Okay. Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai.